He thought he'd rescued a lost puppy from the rain, cold, weak, and trembling in his arms. But when the vet took one look at it, his face went white as a sheet. What lay in Jake's jacket wasn't a puppy at all. And what it really was left everyone speechless. The rain poured in relentless sheets, turning the empty highway into a blur of gray and silver. Jake tightened his grip on the steering wheel, squinting through the downpour. It was almost midnight, and all he wanted was to get home, change into dry clothes, and forget the exhausting day. But fate had other plans. As his headlights cut through the storm, something small darted across the road. Jake slammed on the brakes, heart racing. For a moment, he thought it was debris, until he saw it move again. He stepped out into the cold rain, his shoes sinking into the mud. That's when he saw it. A tiny black creature, soaked to the bone. Shivering violently, It let out the faintest whimper, a sound so weak it barely reached his ears. Hey, it's okay," Jake murmured, crouching down. The poor thing's fur was matted, its eyes wide and terrified. Without thinking, he scooped it up and wrapped it in his jacket. As he held it close, he felt its fragile heartbeat flutter against his chest. Jake looked down at the trembling bundle and whispered, "You're safe now, little one." He had no idea how wrong and how right. He was back home. Jake gently placed the trembling creature on a soft towel near the heater. Steam curled in the air as the warmth began to chase away the cold. The little one blinked up at him with wide, glassy eyes that seemed too large, too soulful for its tiny body. Jake smiled softly. "You must be starving," he said, pouring a bit of warm milk into a shallow bowl. The creature sniffed it, hesitated, then began to drink in quick, desperate sips. Watching it eat filled Jake with an unexpected tenderness. He carefully dried its damp fur, noticing how its small paws clung to his fingers. Despite everything, it trusted him completely. When he laid it on a folded blanket, it curled up instantly, a faint purr, or was it a sigh, vibrating in its chest. For the first time that night, Jake felt peace. Morning light streamed through the curtains, painting golden lines across the living room. Jake stretched, smiling faintly as he remembered the tiny life sleeping near the heater. But when he looked over, something felt different. The creature was awake, staring at him with those same glassy eyes. Only now, there was an intensity in them he hadn't noticed before. It didn't wag its tail or make a playful sound. Instead, it tilted its head and released a strange clicking noise, almost like two pebbles tapping together. Jake frowned. "You're a funny little guy, huh?" he said softly, reaching out. The creature didn't flinch, but its movements were unnervingly quick, too quick for such a small body. It darted toward the bowl of water and began lapping it up, ignoring the milk and dog food he'd left nearby. Later, as Jake tried to pet it again, he noticed tiny, sharp claws pressing against his hand. And when it yawned, he froze. Its teeth, small but needle-sharp, glinted under the light. A chill crept up Jake's spine. Something wasn't right. He glanced at the clock, heart tightening. "Okay, buddy," he whispered. "We're going to see the vet first thing." The bell above the clinic door jingled softly as Jake stepped inside, the tiny creature tucked securely in his jacket. The familiar scent of antiseptic and animal shampoo filled the air. A receptionist smiled warmly. "Walk in." "Yeah," Jake said, glancing down at the bundle in his arms. "Found this little guy last night. Poor thing was freezing out there." Within minutes, Dr. Harris, the town's long-trusted veterinarian, ushered Jake into an exam room. He reached out gently, speaking in that calm, reassuring tone he used with all animals. "Let's take a look at you, little one." As the vet lifted the creature from Jake's arms, it let out a soft, unfamiliar trill. Dr. Harris's smile faltered. His brow furrowed. He turned the animal slightly, inspecting its paws, its teeth, its eyes. Then, slowly, his expression changed. The color drained from his face. "Jake," he said carefully, his voice quieter now. "Where exactly did you find this?" "On the roadside," Jake replied, confused. "It was soaked, shaking. I thought it was a puppy." The vet didn't answer right away. He set the creature gently on the table, then took a half step back. "This isn't a puppy," he said finally, his tone heavy. The room fell silent. Even the creature seemed to sense the tension, its tiny body still as stone. Jake's heart began to race. "Then what is it?" he asked. "Doctor." Harris met his eyes and swallowed hard. Doctor. Harris hesitated, his eyes fixed on the trembling creature on the table. Jake, he began, his voice low. This isn't a dog. It's a wild animal. Jake blinked, uncertain if he'd heard correctly. A what? The vet gently pointed to the creature's ears, slightly rounded, for darker at the edges. See that? And these claws, too long for a puppy. The teeth, the pupils, the way it moves. He exhaled slowly. You didn't find a stray dog. You found a wolf cub. Jake's stomach twisted. A wolf. He stared at the tiny creature, still wrapped in part of his jacket. It looked so fragile, so harmless. How could something so small belong to such a feared species? Dr. Harris nodded grimly. And judging by its size and markings, it's a gray wolf, a protected species around these parts. It must have gotten separated from its pack during the storm. He paused, his expression tightening. They're not supposed to be anywhere near residential areas. Jake ran a shaky hand through his hair, speechless. He had cradled it, fed it, let it sleep beside him. I didn't know, he murmured. I believe you, Dr. Harris said softly. But you need to understand. Wild animals can carry diseases, and if the mother is nearby, she'll be looking for this cub. Jake looked down at the tiny creature. Its golden eyes blinked up at him, trusting, innocent. His heart ached. He'd only tried to help. Jake stood frozen, his thoughts tangled between fear and compassion. He glanced at the tiny cub, now curled up on the examination table, unaware of the weight its discovery carried. Its chest rose and fell gently, each breath fragile yet alive. A heartbeat he had promised to protect. Dr. Harris's voice softened. We'll have to call the Wildlife Rescue Center. They can take care of it properly. Jake's throat tightened. He knew the vet was right, but the thought of letting go made his heart ache. Can't I just keep him a little longer? He asked quietly. The vet shook his head. It's for his safety, and yours. Jake nodded slowly, fighting the sting in his eyes. When the rescue officer arrived, Jake leaned close, whispering, Be brave, little one. The cub let out a soft cry as it was carried away. Jake's heart shattered in silence. Days turned into weeks, but Jake couldn't stop thinking about the little cub. Every time it rained, he found himself glancing at the empty towel by the heater, remembering how tiny it had looked wrapped in his jacket. Part of him wondered if it even survived. Then one afternoon, the phone rang. It was Dr. Harris. Jake, he said, his tone lighter this time. The Wildlife Center wanted me to tell you something. Jake's heart skipped. Is the cub okay? The vet chuckled softly. More than okay. You saved it. When they examined him, they found he had an internal infection, one that would have killed him within hours if you hadn't brought him in that night. Jake exhaled, relief flooding through him. Months later, he visited the reserve where the cub had been released. From the edge of the trees, a young wolf stood watching, strong, alert, its coat glistening in the sunlight. For a long moment, their eyes met. Jake smiled, whispering, You made it. The wolf tilted its head, almost as if it remembered him. Before disappearing into the forest, Jake stood there quietly, a tear slipping down his cheek. Some goodbyes, he realized, were meant to last forever. Sometimes, the lives we save aren't the ones we expect, and the love we give finds its way back, even from the wild. Jake thought he was rescuing a puppy, but in truth, he saved a life meant for the wilderness. If this story touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe for more incredible tales of compassion and fate.